Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, my dear friends, now I'm going to share with you one Sutta teaching by our Supreme Buddha. This teaching is called the island. Okay, so this teaching teaches us about to be an island for ourselves, with yourself as an island. So at that time, our Supreme Buddha, living in Savatthi, in a certain city in India. So, at that time, so our Supreme Buddha addressed the monks. Buddha said, bhikkhus, monks, dwell with yourself as an island, with yourself as a refuge, with no other refuge, with the Dhamma as an island, with the Dhamma as a refuge, with no other refuge. So, my friends, Buddha say, you should live with yourself as an island. You know, when there is suffering that we experience, if there is an ocean that one falls down, so one needs an island to survive themselves. So that island should be, Buddha say, yourself. As long as we are living our life with devoted to the practice, which means when we live our life with heedfulness, we can be island for ourselves in the ocean of the suffering. Now Buddha says, with yourself as a refuge, you should take yourself as a refuge to protect yourself, with no other refuge. And then immediately Buddha said the second line, with the Dhamma as an island, Dhamma as a refuge. So we should try to understand the Dhamma, the Four Noble Truths in our life. So Dhamma as an island. So by being heedful, we are going to understand the Four Noble Truths in our life. So that will be an island for us as long as we try to understand and awaken ourselves to this truth. With the Dhamma as a refuge, with no other refuge, you should seek the Dhamma, the Buddha's teaching as a refuge. With no other refuge, you should not seek for any other refuge. The Dhamma as a refuge. So you know, my friends, Buddha once said, so the Dhamma is your teacher. Before the Buddha was passed away, he said, don't think that you don't have a teacher anymore. So after I'm gone, my teaching, my Dhamma will be your teacher. Even when the Buddha was enlightened, the Buddha thought like to live without a teacher is a suffering. To live the life without being respected to someone is a suffering. He wanted to survey whether there is a teacher that I can pay my respect, who is higher than my virtue, higher than my knowledge, higher than my concentration. So Buddha, when the Buddha was surveyed the world, he couldn't find such a person. So Buddha thought, okay, right now on, I will choose the Dhamma as my teacher. So there are many occasions, many incidents where the Buddha respected to the Dhamma as a teacher. You might have heard this story. One day Buddha was going to another place, as I remember it's a temple or something, with the Bhante. So the Buddha heard that people in that temple is having a discussion on the Dhamma. So the Buddha stood up front of the door without knocking the door or opening it up out of respect to the Dhamma. So the Buddha wanted not to break that discussion because it was a discussion about Dhamma. So those are the times where our Supreme Buddha paid enormous respect towards the Dhamma that the Buddha awakened. So my friends, Buddha said, don't seek any other refuge when it comes to suffering. Seek this Dhamma. When you dwell with yourself as an island, with yourself as a refuge, with no other refuge, with the Dhamma as an island, with the Dhamma as a refuge, with no other refuge, the basis itself should be investigated thus. Now the Buddha teaches us how we should practice this Dhamma in order to gain that knowledge of the Four Noble Truths. Buddha said, start to investigate. The basis itself should be investigated thus. You should use your investigation. So the investigation is that the way that we reflect to gain some knowledge, some understanding. And Buddha say, you should investigate like this way, from what are sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair born? How are they produced? So, my friends, whenever that we experience any sort of a sorrow, pain, suffering, so the Buddha's teaching is to investigate, to see where these sufferings arise, how are they produced. Then, my friends, Buddha gave furthermore teachings to understand this. And monks, bhikkhus, from what are sorrow, lamentation, pain, despair, and displeasure born? How are they produced? Now the Buddha say, here monks, the uninstructed worldling, which means the person who is not instructed with the Buddha's teachings. And Buddha himself give a definition, like explanation about that person, who is not a seer of the noble ones and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dhamma, the Dhamma of the noble ones, who is not a seer of superior persons and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dhamma. Now that is the nature of the uninstructed worldling. So his nature, Buddha say, is this: that person regards the form as self. Second, self as possessing form, or form as in self, or self as in form. Now these are called the Sakkaya Ditthi, the identity view towards the five aggregates of clinging. There are four views towards the form that one takes as a self. Now let's try to understand this. Now, according to the Buddha, my friends, the form is whatever constituents of the four great elements. Now, do you remember the four great elements now we learned with that meditation? So we learned first is the solid elements, second is the liquid element, third is the fire element, fourth is the air element. So these are what produced this form. In this case, we can say the form as our body in order to give, like, to easily understand, we can say that our body is the form. So in this body, there is these four elements. And according to the Buddha say that the uninstructed worldling see this body as self. And that person cannot distinguish the body from the self. It always appears to be a self in this body. So I'm using the word form towards the body. So the one takes body as self, form as self. When we take hair, head hair, body hair, nails, teeth, these are contains in this form, this body. So one takes the self as these parts of the body. Cannot easily separate these things. So one takes that body as self, which means that is a view. It is called the self view towards the body. From an example in commentaries, there is an example which gives like a simile, the nature of this first view, the view of form as self. So in that teaching, it said that one cannot distinguish the candle's flame with its light. The flame looks always same with the light, but they are two different things. But one takes the light and the flame, like the light and the flame as indistinguishable. One takes the form as self, which is difficult to distinguish. That's the first view. Is that clear for you, my friends? Clear enough? Next, my friends, the second view, or the uninstructed worldling, takes self as possessing form. There is this self which possesses form. So something that there is this self that is having this body. So one takes self as possessing form. By a simile, it is like when there is a tree, the tree has a shadow. So it seemed to be that the shadow and the tree is that connected to each other, like this tree is possessing the shadow. So the same way one perceive there is this self which possesses form, self as possessing form. And again, Buddha say the third view, form as in self. Once see there is this self, and this body is inside that self, which means there is complete authority of the self over the body. That one see that one can control their body according to this their authority, their self view. That is the third view, form as in self. Just as there is this flower, and the flower itself has the fragrance. So one see this flower contains this fragrance, the same way the body is inside the self. So that's the third view. Or self as in form. The fourth one is the self as inside the form, which is very popular idea that usually there are some people say that there is this immortal self inside the body which cannot be broken. It's always eternal and everlasting. Buddha say it is a view one takes that in this body there is this self. Now these are called the four views towards the body, towards the form. Now Buddha say that form of his, which is that he grasps with a view of self, changes and alters, which means it starts to change its form. Let's say now we have grasped this, our body, our form as a self. Now let's say when the body is stricken by the old age, so we gradually reach to our old age and our hair start to change and our nails, teeth, skin start to wrinkle and the body lose its strength. And this, because of striking by the old age, this body is changing now. Now it undergoes this change. And with sometimes with sicknesses, sometimes we might have to face some certain diseases or some certain illnesses in the body, some disorders in the body. So then the body start to change. And also with the death, one has to leave the body. So now it changes and alters, which is like turning into otherwise. That form of his changes and alters. Now the Buddha say, with the change and alteration of the form, now my friends, now see where is that self. Now it is changing, but we cannot stop that. So there was this our view of self, but we cannot control that change. Now the Buddha say, with the change and alteration of form, there arise in him sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair. Now he starts to experience so much suffering, lamentation, pain, despair, and displeasure. It brings him sadness. Now I remembered in another commentary story, it's a simile. Buddha said one day there was a king and asked for a man who wished to live, don't wish to die. So this king said, so man, I will give you 4 snakes to you, which is very poisonous. So you should treat them well. You should not abandon these snakes. You should always carefully protect these snakes. Now, because this is a king's order, now this man cannot reject this. So the king is ordering him, so he took that. Now, these 4 snakes are very poisonous. It's very difficult to maintain. When the one snake need to eat, the snake needs to sleep. When the other snakes needs to sleep, other snakes need to bathe. And the other snakes need to bathe, the other snakes say, I need to eat. So it's very difficult to maintain these 4 snakes, but cannot abandon them because it's the king's order. Now we said that in the story, so the snakes, one snake climbed onto one leg and coiled in one leg, and the other snake in the other leg, and the one snake in the hand and the other arm. So they are coiling this man. Now they are very deadly poisonous. Now this man cannot make them angry or aggravated, so always need to carefully look after these snakes. Now the Buddha say the same way these 4 great elements, the solid element, water element, liquid element, and air element, is very difficult to maintain. Whenever it experience imbalance in these 4 elements, we start to suffer. Now the Buddha say the king is the karma. So the person who offered these great 4 elements, not the person, the factor which offered us these 4 great elements of the body, liquid, solid, and air, is our karma. Karma means what that we done in previous life. So according to the karma that we are doing right here, we'll decide what kind of a form that we're going to have receive in the next life. That's why Buddha said when a person is always practice loving kindness, that loving kindness is enough for them to have a very attractive body in the next life, very attractive complexion and form in the next life. If somebody is killing living beings, harming beings in this very life, that karma decide the lifespan of the next life, the health of the next life. So it always, these 4 elements are always connected with the karma. Consciousness is what actually develops, though it's not a permanent consciousness. It is always a conditioned consciousness. And now the Buddha say, so this man undergoes very painful feelings. Now, let's say with our experience, there are times that, let's say we are suffering from fever. So the fever is something that risened up fire element in the body. So now we cure that fever by taking some medications. Now, as a reaction to the medications, we might have like scratchings or like breaks of our skin. The reason is why, like we took the medication to heal ourselves, but as a reaction, we have like rashes in the body. Now we start to do the medications to the rashes, and then it can give rise up to the bile in the body. So when we take medications to the bile, or phlegm, so it might give us increase of the wind ailments. So it always have to maintain the balance of these 4 great elements, but it is very difficult, just as these 4 snakes. It is very difficult to maintain the balance. So the Buddha say, it is because there is no self. There is no self over these four elements. Now, Buddha say you should investigate this. You should start to investigate. Before we are going to that part, let's see the rest of the other aggregates. So the Buddha say, the same views that we fixes towards the feelings. One take the feeling as self, or self as possessing feeling, of or the feeling as in self, or the self as in feeling. And again the perceptions and the volitional formations and consciousness, even for the consciousness. So there is these four views. There are together, for the five aggregates of clinging, there are 20 views as a self. So I don't think we have time for deep explanation about all of these factors, but you can apply the same teaching that we discussed earlier to the body, to the feelings, perceptions, volitional formations, and consciousness. Once Buddha said, if you wish to see the self, you can take the self as in the body, because that you will see that body is keep changing. So you will see that there is no self. But if you take consciousness as self, it is very unbeneficial because it's always changing. We cannot keep our consciousness always in a fixed position, because once Buddha said, I cannot even see any kind of a simile to explain the nature of the consciousness. Because that much fast the consciousness changes. Now in Buddhism, there are like, Buddha talks about 6 consciousnesses, which means the consciousness, when it arises in eye, it is eye consciousness. When it arises in ear, ear consciousness. Nose, tongue, body, when they arise, they are called their particular names. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and the mind consciousness. It is always a instance of the consciousnesses. They are always keep changing. Now, Buddha say, but monks. Now Buddha say now one takes these all the five aggregates as a self. That consciousness of his changes and alters. With the change and alteration of the consciousness, there arise in him sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair. Now, my friends, sometimes we lay some kind of like ideas in the mind, in the consciousness, that, okay, I will achieve this in the future. But sometimes we see later on, it was changed. That idea was changed. So it's very difficult to see the nature of the mind. Buddha say, like, it is very, very quickly it takes this change. Buddha say it is just like a by similes. Buddha talks about this consciousness, like this consciousness is like, sometimes Buddha say, like, it change like a fish that is pulled out from the water, that the fish is trembling and shaking. The same way the consciousness cannot stay in a one particular idea for some time. It changes. So Buddha say, but when the mind is well tamed and well trained, brings happiness. The more the mind is tamed, it brings happiness. So Buddha say, but monks, when one has understood the impermanence of form, its change, fading away, and cessation, And when one sees as it really is with correct wisdom, thus, in the past and also now, all form is impermanent, suffering and subject to change. Then the sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair are abandoned. Now Buddha say, let's take the first aggregate of clinging, the form. Buddha say, when one has understood the impermanence of the body, the change of the body, the fading away and cessation of the decaying of the body, and when one sees as it really is with correct wisdom, that the not only the present form that I have, but in the past also, wherever there is forms, they all are impermanent. They are suffering and they are subject to change. When one understands that nature of the body, then sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure, and despair are abandoned. He said there will not be any sorrow because he have seen the true nature of the body, true nature of the impermanent nature of the body. Now, as we can see here in this Buddha's teachings, Buddha say, in the past and also now, all form is impermanent. Now, we can say that not only our own body that we should see as impermanent, but whatever there is as a form which is created with the four great elements, one should see them as impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. Now, everything in this world, my friend, which is created with four great elements, have the nature of impermanence. That's why we meditated that all these four great elements are subject to change. They are always undergoes this change. So when one understands this impermanence, all the sufferings will be released from the mind, from themselves. Then the sorrow, lamentation, pain, despair will not remain in their lives because they have seen the truth in these four great elements, the truth in this body. With their abandonment, Buddha say, with the abandonment of that craving, abandonment of that view of self towards the body, one does not become agitated. Being unagitated, one dwells happily. A bhikkhu, a monk who dwells happily, is said to be quenched in that respect. Buddha say, when he understands this nature of the body, the form, they will not create that view towards the body as a self, and they will not be agitated. Their mind will not be trembled by that whatever happens to the body. One dwells happily because they don't agitate it. And because of that, his happiness, when he dwells happily, he is said to be quenched in that respect. He is quenched and he is extinguished in that respect. Because he abandoned that self-view towards this body. So the Buddha also said the same way, when one has understood the impermanence of feeling, when they see it as it really is with correct wisdom, with their developed wisdom, these feelings are impermanent, suffering, and subject to change. All the pain will be abandoned, all the suffering will be abandoned. When one takes the perception, when they see the impermanence of the perception, impermanence in the volitional formations, impermanence in the consciousness, so that they will abandon their sorrow towards that feeling, perception, volitional formation, and consciousness. So they are said to be live with liberation. So they liberate from some certain amount of that view, because that when there is the view of that self is what brings this agitation, this suffering, this pain, this sorrow, because we haven't seen it as it really is. Now, my friends, for those who remove that view of self, what they have is limitless mind without limited to any anything in the world. Now I have another sutta to share with you briefly. So my friends, you might have heard about this, like our Sariputta Bante's lion's roar. So one day our Sariputta Bante was going to leave the monastery, and he went to the our Supreme Buddha and said to the Supreme Buddha, I wish to depart to wander the countryside. So the Buddha said, okay, Sariputta, you can go, you can take the leave. So Buddha gave the permission. And in that time, there was a monk, another monk who was like angry and envy and jealous about this chief disciple Bhante of the Buddha. So because of that anger, so he complained to the Buddha before the Bhante Sariputta leave that place. Sir, Venerable Sariputta attacked me and left without saying sorry. So the Buddha addressed one of the monks. Please, monk, in my name tell Sariputta Bhante that the teacher summons him. So the monk said, yes, sir. That monk replied and went to the Bhante Sariputta and said, now the teacher is calling you. Now at that time, so Sariputta Bhante went to the Buddha, and the Buddha asked, Sariputta, one of your spiritual companions has made this complaint. Venerable Sariputta attacked me and left without saying sorry. So now the Bhante replies, very beautiful these phrases, what the Buddha said, like the Bhante said. Sir, someone who had not established mindfulness of the body might well attack one of their spiritual companions and leave without saying sorry. If there is a person who is not set up his mindfulness towards the body, might attack a spiritual companion and leave without saying even sorry. Now the Bhante said, suppose now my friends, we can understand the previous sutta by this teaching, the how after developing that kind of teaching, how these Bhantes had this liberation. The Bhante say, suppose they were to toss both clean and unclean things on the earth. They put clean things and unclean things to the earth, like feces, urine, spit, pus, and blood. The earth isn't horrified, repelled, disgusted because of this. The earth doesn't say, oh, I don't need these feces, urine, spit, pus. Don't give me the unpleasant things. The earth doesn't say that. Sometimes there are people put flowers into the earth, fragrance into the earth. Sometimes people place their forehead and pay homage to the earth. But the earth doesn't say, please only give me this like respect and pleasant things. I don't need these unpleasant things. The earth just stays the same way. So the Bhante say, in the same way, I live with a heart like the earth. My mind is like the earth, which is abundant, expansive, and limitless, free of enmity and ill will. Someone who had not established mindfulness of the body might well attack one of their spiritual companions and leave without even saying sorry. Now, as we can see here, my friends, our mind has attached to the body hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, and grasps hold in towards this earth part, the element of earth in the body. And then whatever happens to the body will start to weep. Oh, I don't need this suffering. But what actually happens, even though that we attach to the elements or not, it always keeps changing. One day it will be fall down to the earth and disappear. But still, the mind is attached maybe to another form. So that's how this rebirth take place. Again, say suppose the water washes both clean and unclean. Sometimes people mix fragrance with the water, sometimes people put flowers to the water, and sometimes people pay homage to the water. And other times they put feces, urine, spit, pus, and blood. But the water doesn't either, it isn't horrified, repelled, or quaked out of joy that these people are honoring me. The water always stayed the same. So the Bhante said, same way I'm live with limitless mind. And again, Bhante said, uh, people put pleasant things and unpleasant things to the fire, but the nature of the fire will not change. It always keep burning. So the same way, I live with such a mind which is limitless, just as just as the fire element. Again, he said the wind is blowing to the fragrance things and unpleasant things, but it always remains with the same way. So Bhante said, I live with a heart like the wind, the abandoned, expansive, and limitless, free of enmity and ill will. Someone who had not established mindfulness to the body will attack their spiritual companions and leave without saying sorry. And he say, suppose a rag was to wipe up both clean and unclean things, but the piece of cloth that we use to clean some, like we wipe clean things and unclean things by that, like by the cloth, the rag cloth, but it doesn't become horrified or repelled. It always remains the same way. So the Bhante said, my mind is like that, like a rag cloth. Everything welcomes, whatever happening to his life, he welcomes. Suppose a boy or a girl in a lower clan, so goes with much of humbleness, without being much pride, being like praising themselves a lot, because they are born in corpse worker tribe, which means a lower clan. So the same way I live with such a mind. And again, Bhante said, suppose there was a bull with his horns cut, gentle and well tamed. When the horns of a bull was cut, so they are very, very calm and very, very gentle and humble, because they don't have the horns. So the same way, so he would that bull will wander from street to street, square to square, without hurting anyone with his feet or horn. In the same way, I live with the heart like a bull with horns cut. Suppose there is a man or a woman. So same way, my friend. So he says these beautiful similes. And again, Bhante says, suppose someone was to carry around a bowl of fat that was leaking and oozing from holes and cracks. In the same way, I carry around this body that's leaking and oozing from holes and cracks. Someone who had not established mindfulness of the body might well attack one of their spiritual companions and leave without saying sorry. Then that monk rose from his seat, placed his robe over one shoulder, bowed with his head at the Buddha's feet, and said, "Oh, I have made a mistake, sir. It was foolish, stupid, and unskillful of me to speak ill about this Bhante. I told a lie about this Bhante, Sariputta. So it is my foolishness. Please, sir, accept my mistake for what it is, so I will restrain myself in future." So he opened up his fall bad conduct. So the Buddha said, "Indeed, monk, you made a mistake. It was a foolish, stupid thing that you done." And Buddha said, I accept that your fault that you done, so you open up that. So it is a growth in the teachings. Then the Buddha said to the Bhante Sariputta, forgive that silly man before his head explodes into 7 pieces right here. It is said to be a very bad karma. If somebody is like saying that a thing in front of the Sariputta Bhante, I will pardon. So the Bhante said, I will pardon that venerable. If he asks me, may the venerable please pardon me too. So my friends, so I just wanted to explain this with taking a sutta. So I think, yeah, this is the sutta that we discussed today is the uh, make yourself as an island. So I hope this helped for my friends to their spiritual practices. So by the power of these merits, by preaching and by listening to the Dhamma, so may we all be able to realize the Four Noble Truths and be free from suffering. Sadhu,
Sadhu,
sadhu, sadhu.